just because Anthony Albanese escaped an Oval Office bollocking over inadequate spending on defence, it doesn't mean our Defence Force is in good shape. And that bollocking will come eventually because this government's playing a dangerous pea and thimble trick with our Defence Force, making big announcements years off into the future and gutting real spending in the near term. It was always going to be impossible to get nuclear submarines without a substantial increase in defence spending. Labor's insistence that military spending stay at just 2% of GDP while pushing hard on AUKUS basically means there's around 1.75% of GDP for everything else. And that's simply not enough. Not with communist China embarked on what's possibly the biggest peacetime military build-up in history. One consequence of China now having the world's largest navy by far in terms of its sheer numbers of ships was the recent naval circumnavigation of Australia with those unannounced live fire exercises included, something our Navy was embarrassingly unable to monitor. Today, The Australian reports that dozens of workers normally tasked with maintaining and upgrading our frontline F-35 fighter bombers have now been redeployed as part of cost-cutting to pay for new naval acquisitions like the AUKUS subs and those new Hunter-class frigates. The paper reports that all three service chiefs have told the Defence Strategic Review that, quote, they are being forced to slash their sustainment budgets. This is like the maintenance budget, threatening the nation's defence capability as China's military might grows exponentially. The result is that up to 60 jobs have been lost in the F-35 sustainment program because those resources have now been redirected to naval procurement. See what I mean? Robbing Peter to pay Paul, funding stripped from the Air Force to paper over the cracks in the Navy. Royal Australian Air Force Chief Stephen Chappell has issued instructions to delay new projects, slash maintenance and workforce costs to comply with government budget requirements. Now, yesterday he said the Air Force was always looking at ways to optimise and increase efficiency. Well, one of his predecessors was much less diplomatic. Former Air Force Chief Jeff Brown said the penny pinching was leaving Australia with a fragile force ill-prepared for combat. Reduced sustainment funding, he said, forces difficult trade-offs. Fewer flying hours, deferred maintenance, fewer parts on hand. He went on. This hollows out capability. A fighter that cannot fly is not a deterrent. With a small fleet, even minor availability issues can drastically reduce combat mass at a critical time. As well, the government has essentially ignored the Defence Strategic Review's recommendation to fill a critical gap in our military preparedness by boosting missile defences. Now, given that national defence is the most important task of government, the increasingly obvious starvation of every other military program to pay for future subs and frigates, it's a national disgrace. Like the promise to cut power bills by $275 a year, from opposition, Labor talked a big game on defence. In government, though, they've lavished money on green business subsidies, pumping up the public sector payroll, wage increases too for unionised workers in the care economy. But there's nothing here and now for defence. Just announcement after announcement, all out there on the long finger, new spending far off into the future. Even though, as Ukraine and Israel have recently found, military challenges can emerge very quickly and you must have the forces on hand to meet them. You've got to fight with what you've got rather than what you wish you had. If, as the government admits, these are the most perilous times in our country since the 1930s, we need to be ready now for sustained military operations. I mean, sleepwalking through Lotus Land is just not good enough.